This is my presentation on polar bears. So habitat. Polar bears live in what is called the Arctic Circle or the polar ice caps. It is split up into 19 subpopulations along Russia, Canada, Greenland, Norway, and the United States. Their diet mainly consists of seals, ringed and bearded seals to be precise. They spend 50% of their time actually hunting for the seals, and since they spend most of their time trying to hunt them, they eat those seals for the high fat content. Sometimes they will eat narwhals if they need to. And a little fun fact, out of every 10 seals they hunt, they only catch about one or two. And all adult polar bears are predators, but sometimes the baby cubs can be prey to wolves. Threats are causations. So climate change is the biggest, cause in the decline of the population. Climate change is a current problem and a very persistent one too. And since climate change is affecting where they live, since it's melting the ice, since the planet is warmer, they're losing their homes, and as a result, they are traveling longer distances, and they are becoming very malnourished because once the ice melts, they travel by ice, but they're having to swim a lot more, and since they're swimming a lot more, they are burning more energy and more fat, and where they're not getting as many seals as normal, they're becoming very malnourished. So once they do get to land, they're scavenging through trash, and once they travel long enough, they run into these populated communities. And once that happens, humans are getting killed, but the humans are also killing the polar bears. And humans, we are doing things to affect the polar bears also. We are doing indirect activities and direct activities, which are very major contributors. Some indirect activities that we are doing is offshore drilling. And then the biggest one is the burning of the coal plants. Burning of the coal plants is adding greenhouse gases. Those greenhouse gases are making the planet warmer, and as a result of the planet warming, the ice caps are melting quicker and faster, and it's hurting the polar bears. And then some of the direct activities we are doing is we are hunting polar bears illegally still for their fur, and then we are also hunting their food source, which is illegal too. We are using them for food and stuff like that. So the biggest and most prime example of climate change and how it's affecting where they live is the southern Beaufort Sea subpopulation. And as you can see on the right picture, it is the very top of Canada. And if I zoom on this picture right here, you can see that the southern and northern Beaufort Sea subpopulations, which are at the very top of Canada, are red. Since of 2019, they are declining at a faster rate, and they only have about 1,000 to 1,500 polar bears living there right now. And scientists estimate that this subpopulation is at the highest risk of climate change, of decline because of climate change. Mediation. So the World Wildlife Fund, or WWF, is addressing this problem head on. One of the biggest things they are doing is they are monitoring where the polar bears travel. In this picture right here, you can see they're tracking multiple polar bears, but what they do is they put a chip in these polar bears, and they can track their ID, how many cubs they've had, and the biggest thing, where they have traveled to, where they traveled, and where they can travel to since they have been collared. And they do this to see How will it affect polar bears if the ice shifts? And then you can see in this top picture right here that there are polar bear patrol teams. And what these teams do is they travel, and if a polar bear has traveled onto the land, they capture the polar bear and bring it back to a more safe place for the polar bear. Legislation. So polar bears are protected under two acts: the Marine Mammal Protection Act of 1972, and then the Endangered Species Act of 1973. The Marine Protection Act protects the health of the ecosystem, but also where the marine animals, and then where they live also. Um, but the only downfall to that is that it only protects it in the United States and also United States territory. It doesn't protect it all over the world. And there is a protected area in Alaska. It is called the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. And what it does is it's a government protected area where oil drilling is supposed to be illegal. But as of 2017, it is like Trump is trying to um, make it legal to drill oil in these areas, since we are trying to become more independent as a country, and there is predicted to be a lot of oil under or off the coast of Alaska. Remediation. So these the WWF scientists and local people are trying to oppose these oil and gas developments off the coast of Alaska and off the coast of everywhere else, that it would protect these areas where the ecological value, say there was to be an oil spill, it is too high of a risk, and the ecosystem would not be able to bounce back. And then their WWF is also trying to make a map of the areas where vessels need to stay away from, um, the fragile places, in case like another incident like the Exxon Valdez oil spill happens, or just an oil spill in general, and these ecosystems will not recover as they should. Future. So I would address the decline by trying to find a way to solve climate change. Yes, it seems like it is a hard thing to do, but we have to solve climate change before we can do anything else. Climate change is the biggest factor into why these polar bears their population is declining at a faster rate than it should, and why actually other animals are being affected also, not just polar bears. But then the other thing I would address is, once we find a way to fix climate change, how can we rebuild their population? And once we do that, how can we keep it stable so another incident like this does not happen? What I predict for their success in 10 years, if we can find a way to combat climate change, I would predict that their population in 10 years could surpass their population as it is right now. Their population is about 22 to 30,000. So if we can find a way to fix that, then we could see a higher number. And then again, in 50 years, if we can fix climate change, I could predict their population could be the highest in decades. Ideas or concerns that intrigue me. I have two concerns. My biggest concern is what happens if we don't get their numbers up. And that kind of leads me into my second concern. If we don't get those numbers up and they happen to go extinct, what happens to the other animals in the Arctic Circle or in the subpopulations where they live? Because polar bears are at the top of the food chain, and if they go extinct, what kind of effect is that going to have on the other animals? And so that's my also other concern.